You know that specific moment at the school pickup or the birthday party or the play group when another parent mentions what they spent on the kids' winter coats this year, or the new trainers, or the backpack that was the right brand for the right age group? And you nod, you smile. You do not mention the coat you found last weekend for $4, still with the original tags on, in exactly the right size at the thrift store 3 blocks away. Your child is wearing it today. They have no idea what it cost. They have not asked. It fits. It is warm. That is the entire conversation they are having about it. The one you are not having is with the other parents. The one about what it says about you that you still shop this way, even now, even at this income level, even when you could easily do otherwise. While somewhere in that conversation, someone is calculating whether they can justify the brand name version for a child who will outgrow it by spring. Here is what almost nobody calculates about children's clothing. Children grow. Not slowly, not gradually, not in ways that allow a wardrobe to age gracefully into a different size. Children grow 2 to 3 clothing sizes per year through most of their early childhood, which means a jacket purchased in September may not fit by February and almost certainly will not fit by the following autumn. A $40 children's coat worn for 4 months before being outgrown costs $10 a month to own. A $4 thrift store coat worn for the same 4 months costs $1 a month. The child inside them is equally warm. The average American family spends over $900 per year on children's clothing alone, not including shoes, sports equipment, school supplies, or toys. A significant portion of that spending goes toward items that will be outgrown within a season, donated or discarded in roughly the same condition they were purchased, and replaced by the next size up at full price. The thrift store did not invent the problem. It simply made visible what the retail model depends on staying invisible. That the item purchased new last season is sitting on a rack somewhere for a fraction of its original price, perfectly functional, in exactly the size that is needed now. Every thrift store children's section is a record of last year's new purchases, donated in good condition by families whose children outgrew them, often still looking nearly new, because children outgrow things before they have the chance to wear them out. The supply is not accidental. It is structural. Nobody at the children's clothing store mentions this when you walk in for the new season. There is a name for why it feels so uncomfortable to buy children's clothes secondhand, even when the logic is completely clear. Parents don't just buy things for their children. They buy signals for other adults. Researchers call it competitive altruism. Studies in behavioral economics show that parents consistently use visible spending on children as a form of social signaling, demonstrating care, commitment, and adequacy as a parent through the quality and newness of what they provide. This is not vanity. It is a deeply human mechanism. In social environments where other parents are spending visibly, the parent who spends less risks being read as caring less, even when the child's actual experience is identical. The new coat and the thrift store coat keep the child equally warm. The parent wearing the new coat is more visibly adequate. Choosing thrift for your children is not a financial decision alone. It is a refusal to let that mechanism set the terms, to insist that what children need is warmth and care, not a price tag that communicates warmth and care to the other adults in the room. And competitive altruism has a ready-made accomplice in what the culture has already decided good parents spend money on. For years, the marketing has been the same. Your child deserves the best. The best in almost every children's retail context is the most expensive, the newest, the most branded version of whatever the child needs. Buying secondhand for your children is not depriving them. It is separating what children actually need from what the market has decided children should want, and finding that the gap between those two things is where most of the spending was always happening. And the numbers have been making the argument for years. A child who grows 2 clothing sizes per year will go through 20 or more distinct wardrobes before the age of 10. 20 wardrobes purchased new. 20 wardrobes that could have been purchased secondhand at a fraction of the cost and donated back into the same system when outgrown for the next family to find. 3 forces. A brain wired to demonstrate parental adequacy through visible spending. A culture that reads new as better and secondhand as lesser. And a number, the lifetime cost of clothing a child who outgrows everything before it wears out, quietly proving that the price tag was never about the child. It was there the first time a child came home from school talking about a toy, not the brand, not the price, just the thing itself, what it did, why it mattered, and finding it 2 weeks later at a thrift store for $3, and watching the reaction when it was handed over be exactly the same as it would have been at full price. Exactly the same. It was there the season of the coat, the specific autumn when the right coat appeared on a rack for $6, a brand that would have cost $60 new, in perfect condition, in exactly the right size, and the child wore it all winter without once asking where it came from, without once feeling the difference between $6 and $60, because that difference had only ever existed for the adults involved, never for the child inside the coat. It was there the conversation with the child, old enough to notice, who asked why they didn't just buy things new like other families. And the answer that wasn't about money at all, or not only about money. Because this is how we think about what things are worth. Because new doesn't mean better. Because the story of how you got something is sometimes more interesting than the price tag it arrived with. It was there the quiet, gradual realization over several years that the children did not feel deprived, that they felt, if anything, slightly more curious about the origin of things than their peers, slightly more comfortable with the idea that value and price were not the same measurement, and that this distinction had arrived without a lecture. These are not parents who cannot afford to buy new. Most of them have the income and the access. Some of them shop at full-price stores for certain things, shoes that need to fit well, items where quality genuinely matters over the long term. What they do not do is apply the new is better logic to every purchase for children who will outgrow most of what they own before it wears out. They are the parent who, at the school fundraiser or the playground conversation, mentions where they found something close to this. Got it at the thrift store last weekend. Still had the tags on. She's already worn it 4 times. That is not someone who is managing on less. That is someone who separated the question of what their child needs from the question of what the market charges for it, and found that the gap between those two numbers was large enough to fund something that actually lasted. They are teaching, without lecturing, that the value of something is not located in its price tag or its newness, that a coat is a coat, a book is a book, a toy is a toy, and what matters is whether it does the thing it is supposed to do. The child wears the coat, the parent wears the status. And the very next time another parent mentions what they spent on the new season's wardrobe, that question already has a completely different answer, arrived at a long time ago and not requiring revisiting. Now finally, the objection. Children deserve new things. Secondhand sends the wrong message. They'll feel different from their friends. Once you can afford new, why wouldn't you? This is not about what children deserve. Every child deserves everything their parents can give them. If buying new is the right choice for your family and your situation, nothing here is arguing against that. Every family makes its own calculation. This is about parents who separated what children need from what the market decided children should want, and found the gap was much larger than expected. And the message argument carries less weight than it assumes. The message children receive from thrift shopping, when it is framed with intention rather than apology, is not that they are worth less. It is that their parents think carefully about money, that value is not the same as price, and that a coat that keeps them warm is a coat that keeps them warm, regardless of where it came from. And what children absorb from a childhood spent this way is not deprivation. It is a working model of the difference between what something costs and what something is worth. That distinction, arrived at early, tends to stay. The parents who still shop thrift for their kids are not giving them less. They are giving them something the retail model never included in the price. A different way of thinking about what things are actually worth. Here is what most people get backwards. The parent who buys new at every season is not loving their children more. They are spending more, which is not the same thing, and which the children themselves almost never experience as the same thing. A child does not feel the price of their coat. They feel whether it is warm, whether it fits, whether they can run in it. The number on the receipt is entirely invisible to them and entirely visible to the adults in the room. Children outgrow everything. The clothes, the toys, the phases. What they don't outgrow is the model of the world their parents built around them. The one that said value and price were the same thing, or the one that quietly, consistently demonstrated that they weren't. And the parent who built the second model is not giving their children less by any measure that the children themselves apply. They are giving them a different way of measuring what enough looks like, which is, in the end, the thing that lasts longest of everything a parent can give. There is a moment parents who still shop thrift for their kids all describe in almost the same way. It is not the great find, the brand name item for $2, the toy that was wanted for a year, discovered by accident on a Saturday morning. It is an ordinary afternoon, watching a child play in something that costs $4. Completely absorbed, completely unaware of what it costs, completely unbothered by where it came from, and feeling, in that specific, unremarkable moment, something close to complete clarity. Not pride in the saving, not satisfaction at the bargain, just the quiet confirmation that the child does not experience the difference between $4 and $40, and never did, and that the $40 did something else instead. Not because children don't deserve more, because children already have what they actually needed, and much of the difference existed for someone else's benefit. The child never knew the difference. The adults did. The price tag was never the point. What it said about what you believed your children actually needed was. 10 years from now, your children won't remember what their coat cost. They'll remember what you taught them it was worth. Do you still shop thrift for your kids? And has anyone ever made you feel like that was giving them less? Drop it below. We read every single one.